Alright everybody, welcome back to another video. This is Early Omerazul. Today we're going to be talking about Crimson Desert. Specifically about its weird, well, hotkey layout, in-game settings, and the EULA. Okay? And for those of you that don't know what EULA means, that's End User License Agreement, the one, the one y'all usually skip. It's important, okay? It affects a lot. So, we're gonna start with the settings. Actually, I'm gonna start with the hotkeys. Straight out of the gate, you notice the hotkeys are a little weird. It's E to play, O for settings, which is kinda eh. Normally it's enter to play if you need the hotkey, but for some reason it's O for settings instead of escape, and then you have Z for new game, F to load, escape for exit. Which is fine, I guess, but This already tells me this is not a game that's meant to be played with mouse and keyboard, okay? So I got a controller here, specifically a DualShock controller, which for some goddamn inexplicable reason just turned off. And I have literally just plugged it back in. Here's hoping it stays connected correctly to my microphone and, headset. This is DualShock controller, and it'd be like that. So, come on, it's refusing to recognize my inputs right now. Now, I don't know if this is the game or just my controller in general being finicky. Anyway, okay, I'm gonna have to move over to mouse and keyboard, and this is a pain already due to that. Now, I don't know how to navigate this with mouse and keyboard. That's the problem. It's WASD to move, but I can't really... How do I... Okay. Yeah. Okay. We already have a problem. This is obviously not for mouse and keyboard. How do I move the freaking... Oh, I gotta click. Okay. Yeah, it's weird, okay? What I'm saying is that this is made for controllers. It's obviously made with controllers in mind, okay? Okay, first of all, graphical settings. If you look at this defaulted for me to Ultra. Video. These are my current settings. It was defaulted to full screen, which... well... First of all, I have a 3-screen setup, and it didn't recognize that, so it put me in full screen instead of borderless windowed by default. Second, you might notice upscaling is off by default, but it put me in Ultra preset on an RTX 4070. We're gonna have to talk about performance soon-ish. I haven't booted up the game yet, so I don't know if performance is gonna be good or not, but if I go off of the system specifications, which are right here, okay, my RTX 4070 is way above the recommended, okay, way above the recommended. Even without DLSS, I should easily be able to play in 2K on 1440p, or in 1440p on Ultra, excuse me. And then I have this page open because we need to address some stuff here, okay? But that's for later, when we talk about the EULA. Now, you might notice VSync was turned on, I turned it off, but you might notice everything else is off. And I don't know why, but NVIDIA Reflex relies on DLSS for some reason in these games lately. Even though this is not necessarily a DLSS function, as far as I know. Anyway, I might be wrong about that, don't quote me on that. Anyway... graphics settings, you might notice, is missing something very important. Yeah, it's missing motion blur, lens flare, chromatic aberration. It's also missing depth of field, okay? Now I have found a couple. They are in accessibility. Why? I have no freaking clue. Blur? Blur intensity, okay? This is motion blur. And all blur, actually. It's saying adjust intensity of camera shake. That's for the camera shake, excuse me. Adjust intensity of the blur effect applied to the screen, okay? This right here. Usually, I always recommend you turn that off, because it's really bad in games. Depth of field, this is defaulted to on, this is defaulted to 100%. Same for the camera shake, by the way. If you have motion sickness, turn this to 50% or lower. I usually start with 50 and see how it feels. I do have a little bit of motion sickness in games, usually. This is also one of the reasons why I turned blur intensity all the way to 0 because games literally always get motion blur wrong, including racing games, by the way. Then, depth of field. Let's look back at the Monster Hunter Wilds incident. Depth of field. If we look at Capcom's depth of field from Monster Hunter Wilds, that is the recent incident of depth of field and motion blur being extremely wrongly implemented into the game. Turn this off, okay? In most cases, it's just gonna make a blurry mess out of the background, and that's exactly what it's saying right here. Now, I don't know if this is good or not, but I usually turn it off because it's usually really bad, okay? Unless I tweak it manually myself in Reshade, I don't want to see depth of field in my games. Alright. Now, you might notice there is still something missing, and I did talk about them. There's no lens flare, no chromatic aberration. You got particle effects quality, and then you have... in graphics, you have post-processing effects quality and effects quality. And then there's your volumetric fog, which you can turn off if you want, I believe. And then I'm not entirely sure what is actually, you know, because they don't specify. Like, what is controlling chromatic aberration? What is controlling lens flare? I don't want either of those in my games. Lens flare and chromatic aberration are not for the human eye. They are basically post-processing effects. Or, well, they're camera effects, dude. They're not... They shouldn't be in your game, first of all. They are effects that you specifically only notice through lenses of cameras or glasses or such. So you need to have a... You need to have a preset or something for that to turn it off. Not everybody wants those in their games, is what I'm saying. Alright. That is the settings. Again, I haven't touched the game just yet, so this is what I'm going with. Now, we need to talk about the EULA, okay? So, when you see the EULA, is only when you tap new game. So I'm gonna do that. For some reason it's a hold button instead of a press, which is absolutely cringe. Now I'm not gonna read all this again because I have already read it. I suggest you all read it because it's important. It affects literally everything. So I'm gonna just pull up the most important stuff that I've read. So, I'm gonna make this bigger. I'm embiggen it. You might have already noticed something here regarding cheating. Now, I need to tell you guys, first of all, this game has Denuvo, okay? And this is why I have the page here. It's confirmed right here. It has DRM, Denuvo, anti-tamper, which will obviously affect performance to some degree, depending on your hardware. It's probably not gonna affect mine much, but depending on your hardware, it could be very, very bad. Very bad. Second, since we're gonna read some of the stuff that I pulled out of the EULA, I'm gonna already tell you, this game has family sharing. And even though the EULA says something about, you know, transfer of ownership and whatever, which we will read, I need to tell you that Steam Family Share does not breach EULA, okay? Because it's already been approved by the developer, which is Pearl Abyss in this case, okay? So if it says Steam Family Sharing right here, that means it's already been approved, and even though the EULA says something about sharing and whatever, know that Steam Family Sharing is okay. You will not get banned, you will not get your license revoked, which we will need to talk about, by the way. But, yeah, also know that your DualSense controller is USB only, as in when you open up the game, you will be notified with this. So this will tell you that you will be only seeing the DualSense controller PlayStation glyphs layout for the buttons if you plug in your controller. So it's not gonna work via Bluetooth or USB. You need to, you know, cable, which is cringe AF. For some reason they have that. I don't know why that's a thing, but it is. Now, let's actually talk about the EULA. So, Article 4, limited use license. Again, this is a license when you purchase the game, as per usual lately on Steam and, well, any other platform almost, except for GOG, good old games. You do not own your game. And this is very important. Y'all need to read all of this, or at least pay attention to what I'm saying. So, grant of license. Subject to your acceptance of and compliance with this, Pearl Abyss grants you a limited, non-exclusive, non-transferable, and revocable license to install and use the game software, in this case being Crimson Desert, solely for your personal, non-commercial gameplay. So you're not really allowed to make money off of this in any way, shape, or form, including YouTube content, if I am understanding the EULA correctly, including YouTube content and or streams. No transfer of ownership. This agreement grants you a license, not ownership, over the game software, Crimson Desert, okay? It does not constitute a sale or transfer of any intellectual property rights or other proprietary interests. Reservation of rights, except for the limited rights expressly granted herein, all rights, title, and interest in and to the game software, aka Crimson Desert, remain with Pearl Abyss or its licensors. Okay? Now, there's a reason as to why I'm reading all of this. So, here we go. License terms and restrictions in Article 5 will tell you about mods, basically. Because that's what you really care about in your single-player games. Mods and ownership. So, the first one in Article 5, prohibited modification. You're quite literally being told, stop modifying your game. You shall not copy, reproduce, translate, reverse engineer, derive source code from, modify, disassemble, decompile, or create derivative works based on all or any portion of Crimson Desert, the game software, except to the extent explicitly permitted by applicable law. Any improvements or modifications you make, whether permitted or not, are basically automatically, they basically claim ownership of all mods. Unauthorized modification. You shall not modify any files of the game software or facilitate such modification in ways not expressly permitted by Pearl Abyss. So essentially, they're saying that they need to grant you permission to make mods. Unacceptable behavior and security measures. This is in another article, which I did not pull the number of, but it doesn't really matter. You must refrain from harassment, hate speech. We don't really care about these two. Cheating is what we care about, okay? Because that's... cheating in a single-player game is basically mods, or trainers, okay? Or cheat engine tools, which allow you to have a better experience that is not the experience intended by the game developer. Again, this is a single-player game, but I'm gonna continue reading and I'm gonna explain some stuff. Cheating, account theft, or any other conduct prohibited by the applicable platform provider's policies. Violations may be reported through the provider's enforcement tools and may result in sanctions imposed by Pearl Abyss or the platform provider. Now, what this means is that de novo, or in this case, if they have an anti-cheat, which I haven't checked, they will receive a report. Now, I'm gonna look up if Crimson Desert has an anti-cheat. Because I do not know. I know it has de novo, but I don't exactly know if it has another anti-cheat or not. I know it has anti-tamper. I don't know if it has de novo anti-cheat. I think that's a thing. But as far as I know, it doesn't explicitly say anywhere that this game contains an anti-cheat. Anyway. Now, I need to read below. Listen to this. Virtual currency and digital items. Now, what this says is that they may or may not possibly create DLC or expansions for the game, but then virtual currency has me worried. They're essentially monetizing this as a live service game. This is a single player game, by the way, okay? But essentially, this is telling me that they can, at any point in time, monetize this as a live service game. Sale, exchange, or transfer of in-game currency, digital items, or services outside the official store or marketplace operated by the relevant platform provider is prohibited. Again, this is essentially telling me that they at some point may or may not possibly, you know, create virtual currency and other digital items, which we don't really want in a single-player game. So you have been warned. Article 10. Okay, term and termination. So, term. This agreement and the limited license granted herein become effective upon your acceptance and remain in force until terminated. Now, you need to understand something. Unless you modified the game in any way, shape, or form, you are unable to play the game if you reject the EULA, okay? Now, if you reject the EULA, you are literally breaking the EULA, okay? Quite literally, you are breaking the Lua. Not the Lua, excuse me. I've been modding too much. I've been working on Lua scripts too much. You are literally breaching the EULA, okay? The end user license agreement. And, by doing so, termination by Pearl Abyss. Pearl Abyss may terminate this agreement immediately if you fail to comply with its terms, or if Pearl Abyss decides, in its sole discretion, to discontinue providing the game software or related services. Again, they are treating this game, as do most developers nowadays on Steam, they are treating the game you have purchased through Steam, the platform, as a live service game, which it's in fact not, but they are treating it as such. Effective termination. Upon termination of this agreement, the license granted to you shall immediately cease, and you must promptly delete or remove the game software from all devices. Fair? Okay. Articles concerning ownership, license restrictions, limitations of liability, indemnity, injunction, and dispute resolution shall survive termination. Again, they're basically telling you that if you modify the game in any way, shape, or form without their acceptance of your mods, or let me try to phrase this in a way in which you can understand. Unless they explicitly allow you to modify the game, you are basically prohibited. So, modders, do make sure you are allowed to create the mod you are attempting to create before you create it. So ideally, you would voice your idea with Pearl Abyss, apparently. And then, well, technically, you need to get allowed, because otherwise, your mod can get, you know, removed at any point in time, and your license get revoked at any point in time. At Pearl Abyss's sole discretion, by the way. Again, they're treating this as if this was an online multiplayer game, a live service online multiplayer game, which it is in fact not, but it's being treated as such, okay? And I thought this was the most important part of the EULA. Again, you can read the rest yourselves. I just thought I would give you guys a warning, especially if you care about game ownership. And if you care about modding. Now, we need to also read some stuff, which was Article 12 and Article 13. Now, since this is being treated as an online service game, your data is being collected. So if you care about, you know, data collection, you need to understand this. Now, I have yet to actually look for a setting which denies this data collection, so let's try and see if, whoops, wrong one. Let's try and see if there is one. So, normally they would be in accessibility, which it's clearly not. Language and gameplay, which there's clearly nothing of the sort here. Obviously not in inputs, audio, or graphics, and there's none in video. So essentially, they are automatically gathering your data and you have nothing to say about it. Okay? Now, I'm gonna do the obvious and go in-game, and I'm gonna accept all this nonsense because I don't have a choice. You literally do not have a choice. You have a choice of you accept it and you get to play the game, or you refuse it and then you don't play the game at all. Again, they explicitly tell you this. Let me see if I can find it real quick. But they explicitly tell you this, that if you ignore or remove the EULA in any way, shape, or form, you have broken it, okay? Or if you bypass it, you have essentially broken EULA. And you will get effed. If it's found out, that is. I'm trying to find it right now. I know I've seen it. You're gonna have to excuse me for a little bit. This is long. This is really long. But again, they're treating this game as a live service game, which it is in fact not. The only service they actually provide is updates and patches. Okay? That's the only service. In fact, if they make microtransactions, it's not technically a service to you. You're just feeding them money. Technically not a service, considering it's a single-player game. Anyway. I'm trying to find the exact part in the EULA which specifies the fact that if you bypass all of this nonsense, they basically... Your rights to use the game software are protected, blah, but again, you have no choice. If you don't accept this, essentially, you can only reject it, and then you don't get to play the game. As you've noticed, it's not letting me pass the screen. Again, if you bypass this, if you bypass all of this, which you are not allowed, essentially they can just, you know, remove your license at any point in time. Now I'm gonna accept it and I need to go into the game settings. I haven't been past this screen just yet. This is the first time. So I'm just gonna accept and I'm gonna go into the game settings. I need to see if there's a way to stop data collection at least. I'm gonna skip all of this if it's possible. There doesn't seem to be a way to skip the nonsense cutscene or whatever this is. So I'm assuming this is hard-coded to be unskippable. Which is kinda cringe, but for some reason developers do it like that sometimes. I guess it's to mask the long AF loading time, possibly. I heard this game has a lot of pop-in issues still, but we are currently on the 20th, so this is the actual release date of the game, and the game's already been patched twice to my knowledge. Which will be confirmed by looking at the game version on Steam right now, which is 1.00.02. You could have also seen it in the main menu as far as I recall. Yeah, I think it was present in the main menu. Can I please move on? This takes a while. Why does this take so long? You will also be hit by the famous compilation of shaders at the start of the game. Okay, this is actually taking too long. Can we get into the game, please? I need to check settings. Come on. Keep in mind, most games usually have a setting in the main menu which lets you turn off data collection. This is normally, usually, and for obvious privacy concern reasons, an optional thing. Alright, I'm gonna see if I can skip now. Holding E does nothing. Oh. Okay, spacebar has a fast forward, but there's no skip button. Holding E, holding escape. Holding escape gives me a pause. Holding enter does nothing, holding E does nothing. Okay, we're gonna hop into the menu real quick. Options. Finally, menu. add-ons. I don't know what this is, but I'm expecting this is where you will be receiving your microtransaction stuff. Because that's what it looks like to me. Wow, this feels weird. It feels delayed. So, this right here. This add-on thingy reminds me of how Capcom does its stuff with Monster Hunter Wilds, where you receive your DLC and your daily/weekly possible rewards, and where your currency will be received, probably. The microtransaction special premium currency, that is. Which is kinda cringe, but that's a menu right here, add-ons. Okay, we're going to settings to see if any setting has changed at any point in time. So, as far as I'm concerned, this game has in no way, shape or form a way in which you can deny data collection. Legally, anyway. Okay? You have been warned. Now, I'm gonna stop the video right here, because I think performance itself should be for another video. So, I'll see you guys in the next one. Let me know how you feel about you know, the EULA basically putting a stop to modding, unless you get authorized to mod it, that is. And all of that nonsense that I've just read. Which, to my understanding, that's how it should be interpreted. I'll see you in the next video.